October 3rd, 2016, Monday of the 27th week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Galatians. Brothers and sisters, I am amazed that you are so quickly forsaking the one who called you by the grace of Christ for a different gospel. Not that there is another. But there are some who are disturbing you and wish to pervert the gospel of Christ. But even if we, or an angel from heaven, should preach to you a gospel other than the one that we preach to you, let that one be accursed. As we have said before, and now I say again, if anyone preaches to you a gospel other than the one that you received, let that one be accursed. Am I now currying favor with human beings or God? Or am I seeking to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a slave of Christ. Now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that the gospel preached by me is not of human origin. For I did not receive it from a human being, nor was I taught it, but it came through a revelation of Jesus Christ. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm, the response is, the Lord will remember his covenant forever. I will give thanks to the Lord with all my heart, in the company and assembly of the just. Great are the works of the Lord, exquisite in all their delights. The Lord will remember his covenant forever. The works of his hands are faithful and just. Sure are all his precepts, reliable forever and ever, wrought in truth and equity. The Lord will remember his covenant forever. He has sent deliverance to his people. He has ratified his covenant forever. Holy and awesome is his name. His praise endures forever. The Lord will remember his covenant forever.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. There was a scholar of the law who stood up to test Jesus and said, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus said to him, "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" He said in reply, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." He replied to him, "You have answered correctly. Do this and you will live." But because he wished to justify himself, he said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man fell victim to robbers as he went down from Jerusalem to Jericho. They stripped and beat him and went off, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down that road, but when he saw him, he passed by on the opposite side. Likewise, a Levite came to the place, and when he saw him, he passed by on the opposite side. But a Samaritan traveler who came upon him was moved with compassion at the sight. He approached the victim, poured oil and wine over his wounds and bandaged them. Then he lifted him up on his own animal, took him to an inn, and cared for him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper with the instruction, "Take care of him. If you spend more than what I have given you, I shall repay you on my way back." Which of these 3, in your opinion, was neighbor to the robber's victim? He answered, "The one who treated him with mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." The Gospel of the Lord.
October 3rd, Monday of the 27th week in Ordinary Time. The first reading comes from the letter to the Galatians, chapter 1, verses 6 to 12. Paul is writing to the Galatian community. Now, Galatia is not a city like Thessalonica or Philippi. Rather, it's a region in Asia Minor. And Paul had evangelized there, and he had many converts. Well, after he left, a number of Jewish Christian missionaries came up from Jerusalem, and they told the Galatians that Paul had sold them a bill of goods. Paul had preached that the Gentile Christians don't have to keep the Jewish law. Now, why would that even be considered? Because in the early days of the church, when one was being baptized, previously having been Gentile, then one was becoming a Jew. A Jew, one of the members of the chosen people, who followed the Messiah whom Yahweh had sent to Israel. If one is becoming a Jew, should one have to keep the Jewish law? And Paul's message, no, they don't have to. These Jewish Christian missionaries said that Paul lied, didn't have authority, and they present a different gospel, a different good news. And that's why Paul is attacking them in the beginning of this letter. He says, even if an angel were to come down from heaven with a different gospel, let him be accursed. Now, by saying an angel from heaven, he's making a subtle allusion. In the Old Testament, Moses received the law of Israel from Yahweh, but the Jewish people believed he received it through an intermediary, an angel, because Moses couldn't see the face of God and live. Paul is saying, even if a new law came, like the old law, through an angel, it shouldn't be believed. And then towards the end of this passage, he asks whether he's trying to curry favor from God or from humans. Obviously, the Jewish Christian missionaries had said that Paul had given the Galatian Gentile Christians the prescription that they didn't have to follow the law, just so that they would like him. He was only trying to curry their favor. He says that was never the case, because he's only presenting a message that he received from God himself. Remember how the risen Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus. The Gospel is from Luke 10:25 to 37. In this passage, a scribe comes up to Jesus and says, "What must I do to inherit everlasting life?" Well, Jesus says, "What's in the law?" And he responds, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." What does it mean to love the Lord with your heart? It means with your intellect. With your soul, during times of persecution, you love the Lord till they tear the soul right out of your body. Your strength, your material possessions, and your mind, your conscience. Well, the scribe wants to justify himself, so he says, "Who's my neighbor?" And to respond to this, Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan. Now remember, Jewish people hated Samaritans, so to make a Samaritan the hero of a story is to make somebody who belongs to ISIS the hero of a story. It would be deeply jarring. A man's on his way from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and that road even today is twisting and dangerous with a lot of caves on the side where robbers could easily hide. He's caught up by robbers and left dying on the side of the street. A priest and rabbi pass by and don't help him. Why? Well, possibly because they think it's a trap, that if they stop, then the robbers will pounce on them. Possibly because they're afraid he might already be dead, and if they touch a dead body, they won't be able to worship in the temple. They'll be unclean. They rationalize which is it more important to serve, a human or God. But when a Samaritan comes along, he not only bandages him, he takes him to an inn and promises to pay for whatever cost there might be. He is the example of a good neighbor, one who reaches out, one who helps. And so we're called upon to do the same to each other, even to people who we don't know. They are still our neighbors. And may God bless us.